This is the Election Brief. Thanks for staying with us. Now, invite all disqualified aspirants and afford them a hearing towards the necessary corrections on their nomination forms. That's the order from the Supreme Court to the Electoral Commission today, as it ruled on the Commission's request of a challenge of an Accra High Court ruling which asks that the EC allows the presidential candidate of the Progressive People's Party to correct mistakes on his nomination forms. By the ruling, effective immediately, the Electoral Commission is to allow all disqualified presidential aspirants the opportunity to correct anomalies on their nomination forms. Let's get some more details from Joy News' Joseph Akable, who was in court today. So, Joseph, for the purposes of clarity, tell us exactly what the Supreme Court asked the EC to do.
So first and foremost, they've extended the nomination period, and it starts from when the judgment was delivered to the close of work tomorrow. Now, the second issue is that they had to afford all disqualified nominees an opportunity to correct the mistake on their nomination form within that period. So those are the two main orders directed from to the Commission from the Supreme Court. Okay,
and we understand that all pending cases on disqualification of aspirants have been stayed. What does this mean?
The point that Sophia Adenyira, the presiding justice, was making is to the effect that there are some cases before the court that relates to the same issues. They are all talking about not being given an opportunity. So she's saying that the court wants to ensure that the Electoral Commission can have the go-ahead to undertake electoral processes. So by asking that it be stayed, it means it has been suspended effectively, because all those issues they are seeking are issues that the court has granted now by ordering the Commission to allow them an opportunity to correct those mistakes.
I see. Interesting. But what was the mood in the courtroom, even as the Supreme Court judges were delivering their ruling?
Very tense, I mean, you can imagine. And because from the onset, the very first issue, the court agreed with the PPP. The second one, it again agreed to the PPP. Then when it came to the third one, which was the main issue, the judge pointed out that the High Court exceeded its powers by ordering the Commission to allow Dr. Ndima an opportunity to correct the mistake. So at that point, you can get attention in the courtroom from the part of Dr. Ndima's team. But then again, they went ahead to give the same orders that they had given at the High Court. But this time around, even beyond that order, to affect all other disqualified nominees. So at that point in time, the supporters who were outside the premise and waiting anxiously, I don't know how they managed to get the information, but once in a while, when it will be going in their favor, they tend to be singing and dancing outside the court premises.
Interesting. So the Apex Court said that the High Court exceeded its powers.
They got it right by they got it right to hear the matter in the first place. They got it right again when they decided that the means by which the matters were brought before them, that is by judicial review, also they got that one also right by going ahead to hear the matter. But the one that they got wrong was the fact that they ordered the Electoral Commission to allow candidates an opportunity to correct their mistake. They feel that is a power beyond the High Court, and that should come from the Supreme Court. So it was on that score that they disagreed with the High Court on. But they went ahead to give the same orders that the High Court gave.
So yeah, nevertheless, I mean, the Commission has to allow all the presidential aspirants to correct the errors. So I imagine that Dr. Ndum's legal team was elated, because this is sort of like a double win for them, if you like.
And it's one point that Lawyer Yukutu has been making all throughout the proceedings, and he thinks whatever ruling is coming from the court is very important for our democracy, and he shared similar sentiments today as well.
Okay, so we can listen to Nia Otu, who is lawyer for Dr. Papa Kwesi Ndum and the PPP.
Oh, you are aware that under the Constitution there's what we call access to the courts, and the courts would usually not accept exclusion clauses that, you know, take away the right of people to come to courts. So we have been doing well since the advent of this new constitutional dispensation since January 1993, and it's only one of those cases that we've done. You know, the important thing is the right of the party to say, look, I'm going to court. I'm not going to take to the streets, but I'm going to court. And that is the beauty of the whole thing. And the tenacity of purpose, the willingness of the judges to listen, you know, to the parties and come out with a decision. So I think that democracy is thriving. Constitutionalism is thriving. The rule of law is working. Article 23, always remember that it says public officials and public bodies, you know, must work within the law which says them up, and they should be fair to everybody. And whoever feels that he is aggrieved by the way they have treated him can come to court. So what other, rights do you want when you have been told that when you are not happy, just come to court? And the judges are there to listen.
So that's a lawyer for the PPP's Dr. Papakwesi Indum Ni Ayikwe Otu there. What about lawyers for the EC? They usually decline comment on matters like this, but did they speak?
This time around he spoke, but quite briefly. That's Thaddeus, sorry. Yes. And he shared similar sentiments about how important it is for democracy.
All right.
It is a victory for democracy. The court was very categorical in its orders. We came here on 3 grounds: error of law, wrongful assumption of jurisdiction, excess of jurisdiction. And the court agreed with us that whilst there was evidence that there was an error of law on the face of the record, it did not go to the court's jurisdiction, so it wouldn't quash it. It dismissed our 2nd ground, but upheld the 3rd ground.
Well, the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, Charlotte Osei, however, says the ruling by the Supreme Court will determine how they will conduct the 2016 presidential elections. Madame Charlotte Osei, who was addressing a lecture at Chatham House in London, said even though some rulings have not been fair to the Commission, they will respect the ruling.
If we get a Supreme Court ruling on Monday, it's not likely to. It will not affect the elections. If the court shuts the door to the candidates whose nominations were not accepted, fine, we can move on. If the court decides to open the door, I think the sense of the court, which is our sense, is that everything has to be done very expeditiously to save the electoral calendar so that the constitutional order is not disrupted. And so we'll work within very short timelines. It won't require a lot of time to do whatever needs to be done to get the ballots prepared. So we're not concerned about that. When the ruling is given, then we would respect it. I think the reason why Ghanaians should have confidence is that even when it has been very difficult for us, we have made sure that we were following the law very strictly. If you have the kind of political situation we have, where you have 2 very strong parties, almost equal strength, a history of very tight elections, and then you have all these other smaller parties, the safest place for the Electoral Commission is to follow the law. We don't always like the law, but we're not Parliament. The law does not always seem fair to us, but we have a duty to follow the law as it is. Once we start moving away from the law and putting our interpretations on the law, or going according to public opinion, which in my view is a very fickle thing, I think that is a bigger risk that the Commission is leading the country into. If our understanding of the law is different from the judge's understanding, we would defer to the judge. The law lies in the bosom of the judge. But until that happens, we would continue to follow the law.
Well, you just heard the chairperson of the Commission state that the EC will respect the ruling. But what does it mean for the election management body going forward? Joining us on the line with some perspective on this is Alfred Chiayeboa. He is chairman of the Bunahafo branch of the Ghana Bar Association. Good afternoon and many thanks for your time, sir.
Good afternoon, madam.
So you actually predicted that the case would be dismissed by the court. And if I'm right, you predicted this more than 6 hours before the ruling. Did you think that the EC had a bad case?
Thank you very much. Yes, in fact, when I read the process filed by the EC at the Supreme Court, I have no doubt in my mind that the case was bound to fail. Simply because they are going to court, Supreme Court, after the Supreme Court quash the ruling of the High Court. I realized that the process that they used in finding the case at the Supreme Court, to my mind, were not all that clear, whether there was error on the face of the record, and whether indeed the error on the face of the record went to the jurisdiction of the High Court. I had my doubts, so no wonder I predicted that the Supreme Court would throw out their case.
And there are those who say that by this ruling, the EC is going to be flooded with requests from all the parties which were disqualified to assist them correct their errors. Given the limited time that we have to the polls, and we have exactly a month to the polls, is this really the way to go?
Yes, certainly that is the way to go, and I applaud the Supreme Court for that. With this ruling, everything has now come to an end in respect of those who are now in court seeking to challenge the decision of the EC. Because if we're disqualified, you have the opportunity to go back, make the corrections within a limited period, to be able to do with the satisfaction of the East, then you have to go through. And thankfully, we have about 30 days. And I think it's good that this case went to the Supreme Court. In any event, even though I had my disagreement with the East in going to the Supreme Court, I think by going to the Supreme Court, it has brought matters to its finality. Nothing else.
Many thanks. That is Albert Chia Yeboah. He's chairman of the Bono Ahafo branch of the Ghana Bar Association, with some perspective there. Well, the multiple legal suits faced by the EC are just a test of the resilience of national institutions and democracy, and not a threat to our elections. Well, that's according to security analyst Dr. Kwesi Inning, the director of Faculty of Academic Affairs and Research at the Kofi Annan Peacekeeping Training Center. He was speaking to Joy News at a two-day national workshop on the root causes of violent extremism in the sub-region. He says Ghanaians should have confidence in the judicial system to deal with these cases fairly and on time for the December elections to be held.
This is a test of the strength and resilience of our national institutions. There are no shortcuts to progress, and therefore we've got to go through the laid down procedures and the processes to ensure that those who feel aggrieved at least have a fair hearing. For me, going to court and the courts giving a judgment and the EC taking it up to the Supreme Court shows that resilience that I am talking about. But I think we need also, from the institutional side, to be sending messages that will calm people. I think there's a certain sense of unease. Will the elections hold? If they don't hold, what will happen? How will different political parties respond, and how will communities respond? I think we need a narrative that says the 17 member judges who will deal with these cases will deal with them expeditiously, fairly, transparently. So people should just go about their normal business, and as much as possible, we will hold the elections on the 7th of December. When there's a lacuna relating to the information available, then people fill it with falsehoods, misinterpretations, and that creates fear.
From where you sit as a security analyst, do you think we have all it takes to go to the polls on 7th December?
From where I sit, yes. From where I sit, yes. I think it's important for us to believe and to trust that the institutional processes will deal with these complaints as expeditiously as possible, on time. And why do I have this optimistic view?
Exactly.
Because as a nation, we don't have any choice than to trust that the institutions will function well. Because the alternative is way too frightening to contemplate.
Now, today, November 7th, would have been the day that Ghanaians would have gone to the polls to elect a new leader. That is, if Parliament had approved the amendment to the Constitution that would pave the way for the country to hold elections. But even with the numerous court cases over the qualification of some aspirants, the various presidential aspirants have been crisscrossing the country, selling their message to win the hearts and minds of the people. So with exactly 30 days to the December 7 election, who is winning? Well, NDC flag bearer John Dramani Mahama believes he is. He has penned a letter to Ghanaians, and we have a copy of that letter. I'll just read some excerpts of the letter. He says, my dear brothers, and well, it's titled The Home Stretch, a letter to my teeming supporters and Ghanaians in general with a month to go for the December 7 elections. My dear brothers and sisters, we are winning the race. Only God knows the extent of my gratitude to the good people of Ghana for giving me, John Dramani Mahama, the rare opportunity to serve you as president. Ghana is up and rising. In our difficult moments, my government has shown sensitivity to the plight of the Ghanaian. Till this date, my appointees and I have taken pay cuts to support efforts to reduce maternal and child mortality. A directive to provide government vehicles with specialized number plates is being implemented. As a Social Democratic Party in government, we have taken steps to rationalize the anomalies in the electricity company's billing system to the relief of consumers. Recently, students' loans have been reviewed upwards with an enhanced package for fresh students, and the producer price of cocoa has been increased to an all-time high. More jobs have also been created to improve purchasing power. In the health and education sectors alone, 23,411 nurses and 78,000 teachers respectively have been employed into the public sector. We have developed infrastructure, schools, hospitals, public houses, roads, expanded airports, and these alone have created over 400,000 jobs. This is a radical and positive change from what existed before and demonstrates that we are growing the economy to create more jobs. I will continue to be president for all Ghanaians and open the opportunities our country offers to all, irrespective of ethnicity, gender, partisan, or religious affiliations. My dear brothers and sisters, the state of the race is very favorable and continues to be better with each passing day. We are winning the race. I've been overwhelmed by the warmth of the chiefs and people right here in the Ashanti region where I'm campaigning now and across the country wherever I have been. You sometimes stay up at Deba grounds deep into the night to receive us, not to mention the several surprises but pleasant ambushes by supporters in the villages, small towns, big towns, and cities. You offer us water and food as we stop by your homes. I will forever admire the selfies we take, some of which I later find circulating on social media. Let me be quick to add that this election is also about leadership. Ghanaians, I am confident, will once again vote for a leader who not only reflects the aspirations of modern Ghana, but also better represents who we are. With exactly 1 month to go for the December 7 general elections, I ask God once again to, quote, bless our homeland Ghana and make our nation great and strong. So that is a letter penned by the president and NDC candidate John Dramani Mahama, and it's dated November 7, 2016. You're watching Election Brief. I'm Arba Kumsin. We're taking a short break. We'll be back. You're welcome back. Now, the right to vote extends to every citizen of a sound mind and is at least 18 years. But what if a visually impaired I beg your pardon. What if a visually impaired person could not vote? With no braille versions of the ballot paper for people who are visually impaired, the law makes room for assisted voting. Fifi Kumsin has more.
A disability may range from being visually impaired to being unable to walk. But a disability should not be a reason to be denied the right to vote. The framers of the law anticipated this. So the Public Elections Regulations CI 94 tasks the presiding officer at the polling station to ensure an individual can vote no matter their disability. The law says, quote, the presiding officer shall on request permit a voter who is visually impaired or physically challenged to be assisted by a person of the voter's own choice to vote in a manner different from voting procedures specified in these regulations. Where the presiding officer accepts the request of the voter, the officer shall record in the register opposite the name of the voter who was assisted and the reason for the assistance.
Now, it's just 24 hours before the United States of America goes to the polls to elect a new president. And for many Ghanaians living in the U.S. with the right to vote, there's only one candidate worthy of their mandate. Head of our political desk, Evan Spencer, who is covering the elections with support from the U.S. Embassy and the International Center for Journalists, reports of a renewed sense of enthusiasm among Ghanaians there, many of whom are now desperate to turn out in their numbers to vote.
Identity as a Ghanaian yet, but I'm very concerned because whatever happens to America indirectly happens to a lot of countries, including Ghana. So for me, I'm much concerned, and then particularly because of the fact that I live here, you know. So I'm following this election very carefully. Having said that, I think that it's unfortunate with the process that is happening right now. We have, of course, in this day and age where we have a lot of, hackers around, we have a lot of cameras around that literally whatever you do, you think you're doing it in the darkness, but it's out there. And we have people outcry, people, saying that we want this particular person. And
the demographic in which I fit to help you draw your own conclusions. I am a black man in the U.S. I'm well educated. I have lived in blue states all my life, if you will. I think that's enough.
Blue states, by the way, are states that traditionally always vote Democratic. In other words, they've always voted Obama. They are expected to vote Hillary. And he's always lived in those states. He's a black man.
Well, your election headquarters will be bringing you back-to-back analysis and updates tomorrow with a high-level panel moderated by former lecturer at the School of Communications at the University of Ghana, Dr. Eche Sikanko. This will be live on Joy 99.7 FM as well as Joy News Channel on Multi-TV. Be sure not to miss it. And if you missed the live broadcast of our show today, you can always catch it on YouTube. Thanks for watching. I'm Arba Kumsin. Election Brief returns same time tomorrow.